Hello, Superior family, and welcome back to another Coffees and Conversations with Superior Clinical Research, where we sip and connect and just like to have real conversations that matter. I am your hostess with the mostest, Miss Leah Lawrence, and I am really, really excited about today's powerful dialogue, the missing data, why Black men matter in research. This conversation, I can honestly tell you, I feel like is long overdue because we always talk about the data, we always talk about the science, we always talk about, healthcare and things of that nature. And especially since we go very, very extensively into women's healthcare and why they matter, I want to make sure that we didn't ignore who else is missing from the table, because it's far too often that they are and they're not included and really talked about. And that is Black men and men of color. So today I am really joined by someone who brings not just a wealth of knowledge, but lived experience. And I can say is a friend of Superior and the whole Superior team. We just love him over here, y'all. Please give a big warm welcome to Mr. Brandon Johnson, a very passionate person in clinical research. Brandon, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you so much, Leah. I feel like I need to clone myself after that great introduction because I'm not having to live up to it. But no, I appreciate it. Appreciate Superior, like you said, definitely a friend of Superior. Love what you guys are doing. You all are right in my backyard, so love being able to connect.
Yes, we love Randy. We love people over at FOMAT. Sorry, I'm completely forgot. We love people over at FOMAT Medical. We love you guys. Oh my gosh. So Brandon, let's, because we always say you're a friend of Superior, let them get to know you a bit better. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in clinical research?
Absolutely. So yeah, like you said, I am at FOMAT Medical Research doing business development there, actually going on 3 years now. And the way I got into clinical research and what I found out, just having been in the industry now, like I said, for almost 3 years, is, you either kind of stumble into it or somebody who's doing it, and that's kind of your entry point. And that's what it was for me. My father, a lot of people in the industry know my father, Van Johnson. For years, he was telling me about, what he does and how he thinks that I would be great at it. And like most kids, I was probably a little bit hard-headed and just trying to carve my own path. So doing similar things to business development, just in different industries. And then, the time came where I was looking to, make some adjustments, make some changes, so to speak, in my career. And I went to DIA with him now 3 years ago now. And just kind of, wanted to get a lay of the land and how things were with the industry. I knew he was going to these conferences for a while now. And so I wanted to kind of go see what it was like for myself, and got the amazing opportunity to meet various people who I call friends to this day, colleagues to this day, mentors to this day. And the opportunity presented itself for me to come and be a part of FOMAT. And the rest is history, as they say.
Don't you love bringing your kid to work with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what would be one thing that you just wish more people knew about Black mental health or Black men's health, especially now that you're on the opposite side of the lens in this field?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I really wanted to point out when it comes to that is that it's complex, right? And not just from a scientific standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, the complexity of it. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times there's cultural taboos of being open and discussing, these topics when it comes to health in our community, So a lot of times, people just, whether it be from, innate things that we learn growing up of just being kind of closed off and not really talking a lot about, our health and how it's affecting us, whether it be mental health, which, I know it's a Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So whether it be, mental health or even physical health, not really talking about those things. And then also too, that certain level of masculinity that comes with not wanting to talk about it, not showing any sign of weakness, not letting one of my favorite lines from a song in the past. Never let them see you sweat, right? So having that mentality of like, nah, I'm good. I'm just keep moving. Walk it off, right? Being a former athlete, you hear that all the time, and it just becomes so ingrained. Like, oh, you good? Just walk it off, right? And sometimes that is not the answer when it comes to certain things that you may be having going on from a health standpoint. So and then also, I think you have the social conditioning of shying away from these topics, but then also too, there's the issue of some people just not having the luxury of being able to deal with these topics, right? Whether they're providers or caregivers or whatever the case may be, and it's like, hey, I don't have the luxury to miss time from work because I'm taking care of my family. And if I'm not bent over, crippled, and not able to walk, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to go do what I need to do to provide, because that's what I know. That's what I've been taught. That's what society tells me that I have to do. So I don't have time to go to a doctor's office, or I may not even have the means or resources to be able to go to a doctor's office and be able to see what's going on with me. We grind ourselves down to the bone until sometimes we're forced to, we aren't able to walk in. We have to be rolled in those instances, unfortunately. So, I think that's one of the biggest things for me is just the complexity of what we deal with from a mental and physical standpoint.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like that's so important, and lots of people don't understand that it is complex. Like my older brother Derek, he was a manager at UPS warehouse back in Philly for as long as I can remember. And before he got to his manager status, and he was just a regular worker, one time he dropped like a box full of something on his foot. Derek never said anything to anybody. He was just limping all around, still going back into work at the warehouse, and you're going to be on your feet, moving more stuff, putting more pressure on it. Never said anything until the limp just got so pronounced. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Just regular. What's wrong with you, Derek? I dropped something on my feet at work. When? Like 2 weeks ago. You still been working? And you haven't said anything? And you still been going in, and it's just like, it's that condition. And he looked at me like I'm crazy. Like, of course I'm still working. Of course I didn't say anything.
Right.
And it was just like that. I was just like, hold up. Sometimes we're taught to pray instead of actually taught to recognize our feelings and taught to vocalize it and just say, it's okay. Like, you are in physical pain right now. You don't have to be strong. You're in pain. And it's okay that you feel that pain. And it's okay to go to a medical professional or somebody and say, hey, I'm in pain. What can we do? It is okay. But like you said, a lot of times people don't have that luxury. And sometimes even people don't even know, because Derek was not going to call out from work at all.
He was going to walk it off.
He did. He limped it off to the best of his ability. But that is something that we definitely should be shedding a light on more. Okay. And now, I want to shift into something more that we also deeply care about as Superior: representation. So when you hear the phrase Black men in clinical research, what comes to your mind?
Yeah. So initially, I'd say some of the great friends and mentors that I've had the opportunity to connect with in the industry. That's one of the first things that I think comes to my mind, because being still new to the industry, I was very green, as they say, right? I knew somewhat about it, obviously. Like I said, my dad being in the industry, so being able to pick his brain about a lot of the things. But, I didn't really know all the ins and outs and how it affected people, how it affected communities and things like that. So being able to really lean on different people that I've had the opportunity to meet and really ingrain in myself with them, so that way I can make myself more knowledgeable about clinical research and what it is that we do. And then I'd say from there, a couple of words come to mind: necessity. It is very necessary for representation, not just from Black men, but from people from all walks of life to participate in clinical research, right? Because what this drug may do to my body, it may not do to your body, or or somebody else from a different background. So it's very necessary that we participate, because it can be something that could really save the lives of somebody else, somebody that might be near and dear to you, or somebody that you may not even know. But it's very necessary, because now we're able to collect data from various different sets of data, so that way we can make sure that it's an effective way of treatment. So that's one of the things that come to my mind. And then the other thing that comes to my mind is history. And I won't dive too much into that. I think you have some other questions that will kind of get into the historical aspect of Black men in clinical research. But those two things come to my mind: necessity and history are the two words that really popped up in my head when I heard that question.
And they are powerful as is. All right, I want to shift over to the comment section, because we actually have quite a few. And Mr. Barry Holmes Jr. said, "My guy," to Brandon. Hey!
What's going on, Barry?
Ashley said, "Thank you for your transparency." I feel like that's something that's always needed, and something like we talk about, but like you just have to do. Just like it takes nothing to just be honest and transparent for 2.5 seconds.
Absolutely.
And then we have a Dr. Sakar. It says, "I am a young chap currently graduating and looking for leads to step into clinical research and regulatory affairs. I don't have much experience, but I have developed all possible skill sets and have completed all possible certifications I can. What would be your advice?"
Wow. No, great question. I would say, I don't know where you are, doctor, but I would say, find industry related events going on in your area. One of the things that I love about this industry, and that I found really from day one when I went to the conference, as someone not even in the industry, just looking to get my foot in the door with my dad a couple years ago, I found people who were willing to, be very helpful. So, I would say find those industry events in your area, network, meet people, because, they may not be able to do something for you right then and there, but maybe they'll find out something down the line, or maybe they know someone who can do something for you, and being able to connect that way, I've seen was obviously beneficial for me, but I've also seen it be very beneficial for other people that I've had the opportunity to meet throughout my time here in the industry. So, one of the things that I've always been a firm believer of, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. So I would say, starting there is a really, really great way to do it. I know certain conferences can tend to be expensive, but if you can attend one of the industry conferences, again, there's a lot of people there that you'll have the opportunity to rub elbows with, and just kind of share with them your experiences, your story, and what you're looking for. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to know somebody who can, put you on the right path.
And a lot of this, just everything Brandon said was amazing, but also a lot of the conferences, they do have this thing like a social media challenge where they'll give away some tickets to the conferences if you, share and post on social media. I will stress that a lot. Social media is a place for you to meet people, connect with people, talk to people, because when you actually get to the conference, everyone's talking and communicating through the app. And just make sure like you're on the forums on LinkedIn and things of that nature, but definitely connect with people, and you will not go wrong. All right, so back on topic, Brandon, why do you think participation in trials is so low when it comes in terms of Black men?
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of goes back to the previous topic when I brought up the word history. I think one of the biggest things is the history of past misuse of Black subjects, right? Everybody knows about the syphilis and different things like that went on previously, especially, during a time where there weren't a lot of regulations involved with clinical trials. So, I think that's one of the biggest barriers that comes to mind. Anybody who knows anything about those events and those things that happen, there's going to be that immediate pause of like, hey, I don't want to put myself in that type of situation. But also too, I think one of the other things is education of what it is, right? A lot of people aren't very familiar with the process of like, hey, you might be prescribed this medicine, but when you go to the doctor, they prescribe you this medicine for whatever you have going on. But a lot of people aren't aware of like how this medicine came to be. It had to go through the clinical trials, the different phases and different things like that. So having that education of, hey, this is why it is what it is and how it came to be, and how it's beneficial, and then also too just understanding how beneficial it can be, to future drugs and things like that, future people who may need to take that drug. So being able to be educated about clinical research, why it's important, how beneficial it can be to yourself, to a family member, a friend, or whoever it may be, I think is one of the barriers or reasons why representation may be low as well. Because if you don't know about something, how can you participate?
Mm-hmm. That is very, very true. Education is really, really big because me and Brianna have this running joke on Coffees and Conversations, and I tell the people how I still have an uncle to this day that when like we talk and he's like, "How you doing, Lee?" I'm good, Uncle Tim. You still working with them guinea pigs? Still use people as guinea pigs? They're
Absolutely.
not guinea pigs. Like
Absolutely.
he genuinely believes that Planet of the Apes and Caesar and what they were doing in there, that's what we do. And that's
Right.
what I do at work. And I cannot even stress this. He's firm in his belief. And it's just like, no matter what I say, no, that's what y'all be doing. No, I know that's exactly what y'all be doing. No. And that just further goes to show me, I'm his niece. I like to say I'm his favorite niece. But even still, I have to like carefully like go back and still like, no, Uncle Tim, that's not what we do. Such and such and such and such. No, Uncle Tim, we do. No, Uncle Tim. And it takes more than just one try.
Absolutely.
It takes more than just 2 tries. Sometimes it's gonna take a minute. But I honestly, if I could get him in a trial tomorrow, I would jump for joy.
Yeah.
I really, really, really would. Because I know once he gets in it, he would probably ask so many questions he probably needs to ask. Because also Uncle Tim will not go to the doctor for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, if I would get him in one, I know he would just be like, just his quality of health would be so much better. Just as soon as I can get him with someone he's comfortable with and can deal with the fact that he's a little bit ornery, but he's completely harmless. Okay.
And you made a great point too. I'd like to just piggyback on until you mentioned something about him asking questions. Oftentimes I think that is a big thing, right? We as men have to get away from the what's the word I'm looking for? Just get away from being too proud to ask questions, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay not to know, but what's not okay is not being willing to find out. I think that's the important piece, right? It's what you don't know is what you don't know, right? But when you're not willing to find out, that's when the problem comes into place, and you kind of stay stuck in, for lack of a better word, that ignorant cycle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Unfortunately, yes, because it's like you should look at it as no question as a dumb question, but for some reason, and all usually with a certain generation, it's like, no, there are some questions that's a dumb question, and you're not going to look at me dumb, and I'm not going to ask you in the first place, and I'm just going to walk away not knowing because I don't care. Right. And it's like, you can ask. It's all right. It's all right. Okay. So have you ever witnessed personally or experienced anything that kind of made research feel less welcoming or acceptable?
I wouldn't say necessarily, anything that made it feel impossible or not acceptable. For me, I would just say going back to the education piece, right? Because I'll be honest, in my younger days, I was definitely one of those guys who was like, yeah, I'm not going to the doctor. I'm good. And if my arm ain't fell off, I'm good. I'll figure it out, right? Being a little bit older now, having 2 kids, wanting to make sure that I'm healthy and whole and able to watch them grow up, I've obviously changed that stance a little bit more to make sure that I am here and able to witness that. But again, for me, I think when it just kind of goes back to that education, right? And just being or not being, should I say, presented with the opportunity or information about it. So if it was a situation, now when I go to the doctor, because I am in the industry, I kind of find myself being the one to bring up clinical research versus it being the other way around sometimes.
And that's real. And that's real. And that all goes through some person's natural lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that also, I think, brings us on to something that I hear that we hear all the time at conventions and conferences and everything: trust.
Mm-hmm.
So, from your perspective, how can research sites and sponsors build real, authentic trust with Black men?
Absolutely. So one of the things that, again, I mentioned at the beginning of Superior, you guys are right here in my backyard. So, I love being able to pop up at the events that you guys have going on. And that's one of the first things for me is meeting people where they are.
Mhm.
But not only just meeting them where they are, but meeting them where they feel comfortable, right? Because if you're, well, I think of the example of, let's say, you're out at the gas station or out at the grocery store, somewhere in a public place, and somebody approaches you wanting to talk to you about something. 9 times out of 10, you kind of have a guard up, right? Because you're not in a place that you're comfortable, right? But if you meet somebody at a relative's house, or somewhere that you've been before, and that you have a little bit more relaxed feeling, you feel a little bit safer than you would be maybe in a public place. Now your guard is down a little bit. Now you have that opportunity to have a real conversation. So not only meeting people where they are, but meeting people where they feel comfortable, somewhere that they've been before. I know a lot of times there's different community events that go on. For instance, people who aren't familiar with this area, but the Ham and Yam Festival. I know you guys had something
Mhm.
out there. That's something, like most cities and towns across America, they have an annual event where people in the area will come out and things like that. So if that's something that you've been going to for years, you're in your hometown, you're in an area that you're around people that so you have a little bit more comfortability, your guards down a little bit. So meeting people there, and being able to talk to them there. But then also too, one of the things that really sticks out to my mind, like I said earlier, I've been in sales probably since I started working, I'll be honest. And one of the realest things that older gentleman told me in regards to sales, and it's stuck with me to this day, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mhm.
So really showing people that, hey, I'm not just trying to, tell you about this to meet a quota, or, to run my business, which obviously those things are important, and those things are things that we're trying to do. But I'm trying to teach you about this and enroll you in this study, or whatever the case may be, because I genuinely care about you as a person and care about your health and your well-being. And so really establishing that level of trust and care, I think really goes a long way of, to being able to increase the number of people that we have participating in clinical trials.
That's a perfect segue to my next question. Okay, so what would you say to someone who's skeptical, or maybe even scared about participating in a study? How would you put that? How would you spit it right to them?
Well, I tell them, hey, this could really be the difference between life and death, right? And I know that is a bit brash and a bit like right there in your face,
But it's
but it's true.
real.
Yeah, I mean, it's really true. Like, and that's one of the things that has been a really interesting thing for me since I've been in the industry, hearing the numerous stories of people who are in the industry saying, hey, I had a family member who was dealing with XYZ, and then they enrolled in this clinical study, and now they're still here to this day. Or, just those different stories. I think for one of the things that really sticks out in my mind at SCRS Include earlier this year in Atlanta, a lot of
Mhm.
people in the industry know Anna Marquez Faki and Dr. Faki. They were on the stage and they shared their story about Dr. Faki's struggle with cancer, got in a clinical trial, and that really helped him out, and helped cure him, and now he's here today to be able to tell the story. And by the time they got done talking about that and the whole situation, I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. But that really resonated with me. and then also too, not simply because of the situation, right? Because that definitely was a big thing for me, but then also too, as someone who works in the industry, right? But I'm not, you mentioned earlier, and I mentioned I'm in business development, right? I'm not a PI, I'm not a sub I, I'm
Mhm.
not a, CRC. I don't even see patients, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes when you're, for me anyway, when you're in that role, it's like, how much of a difference am I really making, right? I'm sending emails, I'm having conversations, I'm trying to, you know, get studies in the door, right? But it's a sales role, right? But having that conversation or hearing that conversation and then having the pleasure of talking to Anna after their talk on the stage really made me feel a lot better about my role, because one of the things that she said in it was every person who has a part in the cycle is important. It's all important, no matter what it is that you do in the cycle of the clinical trial, from point A to point Z. You're an important cog of the wheel, and that really kind of gave me a renewed spirit about what I'm doing, because hey, somebody has to bring them in the door for there to be the ability for patients to be able to enroll and get these life-changing opportunities to help keep them alive. So that was something that was really, really big to me. And then, also too, just going back to the question of what I would say to a skeptic, considering the effect that it could have not only on you, but maybe your child, right? Because a lot of the medical things that happen in are genetic, right? So, it could be something that you're dealing with that maybe it's not showing up in your child yet, but eventually it may. It may be something that genetically may be passed down. So, understanding that, hey, you could be doing something that could save not only your life, but your child's life, or another family member, or a friend, or somebody is going to be positively affected by this opportunity. So, being able to tell those real life stories, I think for me would really be able to make it hit home for people.
Yes, it does. It really does, and it goes back to how we always say, meeting people where they are, because you really can't rebuild trust in communities, or even get people through the door without showing up and listening and honestly keeping your word and being consistent. Hopping over to the chat, because you guys have been going, we appreciate it. I took a moment, I looked off of it for 1 second, I seen it, I was like, this is amazing. I think the last one is from, you see, Myra. It says, Myra Fonville, she says, I have been in this industry for over 28 years, and during that time, I've seen some improvement regarding the number of Black men in the industry. However, there is definitely a glass ceiling. Changes are definitely needed. Maya Hicks said, education is important. Yes, always, always, always. Ashley said, also, there's a lack of people that may look like the subject in the industry to provide trust. That is definitely something that, yes, yes.
No, absolutely. If you have somebody who walks like you, talks like you, looks like you, that does make things a little bit better. That actually makes me think about a story. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing. He's
Go
my dad.
ahead.
I don't care if he minds or not. We'll deal with it when I see him this weekend. So during COVID, my dad was a pastor. And so
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, at the height of COVID, well, especially at the beginning when vaccines were becoming available, if you remember, it was initially like, hey, we want to kind of give them to the elderly first. And so there was a older woman in the church who, she was eligible to get the vaccine, but she was skeptical, right? But she knew that my dad worked in clinic, had something to do with clinical research and some, worked in that realm. And, she asked him straight up, like, hey, listen, should I take this vaccine? And he told her, because at the time, he wasn't even eligible yet. So he told her, he said, listen, if you don't take it, I'm going to call the doctor's office and tell them that I'm you so I can go get it. Right. And that was enough. That's all she needed, was
Mm-hmm.
she said, okay, cool. I think she went and got it the next day, if I'm not mistaken. And for her, that was all she needed. Somebody that she looked like her, walked like her, believed like her, and that she trusted to be able to say, all right, cool. You say it's good. I'm going to go do it.
Mm-hmm. I think I forgot where I read it from, but it's called respecting or honoring the social construct. Mm-hmm. And it's like we do have this social contract. We have this social contract with our friends and our family members or people at our church and things of that nature, that if they say, hey, go here, or I got this from such and such done, or if they like bring you something for you to cook for your home, you're not going to feel like icky about it, because it's just like you've already built that rapport and trust with that person. And so it's just like, it's a contract where like, you take care of me, I take care of you. If you offer me a bit of advice, I'm going to take it. I'll give you a bit of advice, you take it. And it's about honoring that and being able to see that and spot it when people have made that trust with you and they sign their contract. Okay, I'm gonna listen to everything you say, Mr. Van. You say you go get it. If I don't, I'm gonna go ahead and get it.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. And so let's talk about solutions, because awareness is just the first step. So what do you believe has to change for more Black men to see that clinical research is as safe and a valuable option?
Well, one of the things that I've often thought about, just from my time in the industry, is, while I was in school and college, I didn't hear much about clinical research. It was, now granted, I was a business major, so maybe it just wasn't being talked about in my building, right? But it also wasn't being talked about in the dorms. It also wasn't being talked about in the student union, things like that, where there were a mass number of people, right? So I think so that's been one of the biggest things that I thought could really help kind of shift the dynamic, is going to grassroots, right? Going to the HBCUs, and simply talking to people about it, and making them understand. Because one of the things that I really think has happened, right? Our generation is a little less skeptical than our parents, right? We're a little bit more open and willing to try things than they were, and they were probably a little bit more open and willing to try things than their parents were. Right. And then the younger generation is even more willing and open to try things than we probably are. So I think, being able to really do that, I think would have a drastic impact on being able to increase the numbers. But then also, too, maybe even going lower than that, right? Down to high school, middle school, elementary level, talking to people at that level as well. Because now what you're doing is you're getting them young. You're capturing that audience very young, before some of those skepticisms kind of can be created. Before some of that cynicism is created, before just even some things that they may learn or will learn later on has even been introduced. Now you're kind of giving them the real very early on, right? So now when somebody comes to them with the guinea pig thing, it's like, no, I learned about this when I was in It's not that. This is actually what it is. And now what you're doing is maybe even creating more representation within the industry, right? Because now you've caught them at a very young age and they're interested. And, when they go off to college, it's like, hey, this is something I want to study. This is something I want to be a part of. I don't want to just be a participant. I want to be a part of the solution, helping people. So now we're not only we're increasing patient enrollment, but we're increasing industry enrollment of people who are actually conducting the studies. So I think now we're able to hit it from both ends. And really attack it that way as well, because you made a point earlier of being comfortable with people who look like you, right? And that's actually a personal story of mine. When I said I started kind of going to the doctor a little bit more, and one of the first doctors I went to, it was I didn't quite feel that connection of like, there's still kind of that barrier there of like, how can I relate and talk to you, right? And just being very transparent. After that, I was like, okay, I'm glad I went. Everything's fine. I'm not falling apart, so I don't need to like make a quick follow-up visit. But the next time that I plan on going to the doctor, I'm online. I'm looking for somebody who looks like me, right? So now when I go in, I can have a conversation. there may just be that level of, hey, you get where I'm coming from type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. So I think that is for me, I think that's one of the biggest things, is just really educating people as early as you possibly can. And then also too, going back to just kind of catching the younger audience, what that does sometimes is, now you're teaching them about it. Now they're going to go home to their parents, and they're going to talk to them about it, right? Hey, this is what I learned at school today about clinical research. Let me talk to you about it, right? But now it's not me or you talking to a stranger; it's their kid talking to them about it. Now that hits a little bit different than this complete stranger who, may look like me, may walk like me, may talk like me, but they're still a stranger, right? But this is your kid saying, "Hey, this is what I learned about clinical research, and this is why it's important." Now we're building that level of trust from like 3 or 4 different angles, and hopefully being able to increase it that way.
I'm actually really, really glad you said that, because it makes me think back to high school. Um, that's when my eyesight started really, really getting bad. And I like to tell people, like, oh, are you far side, near side? I just say I'm 2 prescriptions away from Stevie Wonder status. I'm just um, and me and my high school friends had this little joke. We would call ourselves the struggle bus crew, because all of us had a different health condition.
Mhm.
And now that I think about it, it's had someone come to the school, it was just like, hey, we're doing this. Or like, do you not? Like, of course, yes, I hate wearing glasses. I hate this every 5 minutes. I would have said, yes, please, went home, begged, pleaded, mama, please let me sign up for this job. Like, I probably would have wanted to jump right into the medical field. Who knows? But I know it emphatically. Like, before I had money where I could switch and own like 20 different pair of glasses, and I was just stuck with my original pair that I hated, I would have signed up for a clinical trial, no problem. And I know each and every single one of my friends on the struggle bus would have done it as well. That's what we called ourselves. Okay, so to wrap it all up, and then we're going to do a Q&A, because there's been a lot of stuff going down in the questions. If there's one thing that you want people to walk away from after watching this and hearing all the amazing things that we have talked about, what would it be?
Absolutely. So, forgive me, I know you said one thing, but I just have to. I
Go
promise.
ahead.
I'd say, so to my industry people, let's keep moving the needle. Let's keep pushing even harder to increase the representation, finding those creative ways to really get the information out to people, and bring them in to this thing we all know and love, and know that can and is great. And then to my non-industry people, be open to getting new information, and understanding how clinical research can truly be beneficial to you, your loved ones, your friends, just anybody who may be dealing with whatever the issue may be, being open-minded and willing to learn.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a word. That's a word. That's a word. I know Mr. Van was a preacher, but that's a word. That was a word. If any of you guys have any questions for Mr. Brandon, please let us know down the chat. We're just going to review a few of them. Mr. Barry Holmes Jr. said, you're more susceptible to being a guinea pig, seeing your doctor for meds that may not be for you, versus a clinical trial where you have the most focused attention from doctors. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Indeed.
I wouldn't send my uncle to none of y'all, because he probably annoy y'all so much. But if any of y'all want him, y'all got him. My hit said, making sure participants understand what we do and why in plain language. Yes, in plain language. Sometimes even the people who work in clinical research as a business development associate, I have read some protocols
Oh
that
yeah.
I have no idea what it is that I'm reading. It could
Mhm.
be Slavic for all I know. I don't know. It's just not computing in this brain.
No, there's been several times where I've seen the whole medical terms, and then somebody explains it to me in layman's terms. I'm like, oh, that's all they meant. Why they have to say
Right. It's just like, oh. Ms. Myra Fonville said, education is important. However, a huge barrier is there is little representation among principal investigators. We need more Black PIs in order to build trust among the participants. We tend to trust those who are invested in our community as opposed to those just seeking our business. Yes. Yes, yes. It does say LinkedIn user. My post last week piggybacks on Brandon's. I think this is your dad, the LinkedIn user, because he says I need royalties for telling that story. So I think that was your dad.
Oh, yeah. His royalties are his grandkids. You're
Oh,
welcome.
there you have it, folks. Well, before we go, anything else, Brandon, that you want to say?
No, just thank you again, Leah. Thank you, Superior, for this opportunity. I think these things are great. So, I appreciate it. Let's keep this thing going, and let's take it and not just have it be a conversation. Let's put our words into action. Like I said, especially all my industry people. I love these conversations. I love being able to participate in these conversations, but let's make sure that it doesn't just stop at words on a screen or words at a round table at a conference, and we really take these things out into our community and act on what we talk about and what we think would be beneficial.
Yes, yes. Brandon, thank you so much once again for sharing your
Thank you.
story and your insights and just all around amazingness with us here today. This has been one of my favorite top three coffees and conversations, all about just being honest and holding space and really just imagining a better future, one where everyone is represented in research and no one is left out of the data. To everyone watching, please mark your calendars for our next live session, which will be coming up on June 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here on our LinkedIn page, I will be sitting down with Mr. Mel Mann, a clinical trial participant turned advocate, and he is also the longest living Gleevec and TKI survivor in the world. I had the pleasure of hearing him speak at one of the past conferences, and his journey is nothing short of inspiring. And we are going to be talking all about it, which means we are going to be talking about the trust in research when your life is on the line and why stories like Mr. Mann's are really so critical to changing the hearts and minds and policies that make up clinical research. It's something that you really don't want to miss. So thank you once again, Brandon. And until then, everyone, please keep asking questions, showing up. And like Brandon said, don't just talk about it, be about it. Make those things and words and turn them into actions. Thank you for being part of our community. Bye.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.